Thank you very much, dear President, Chancellor, Vice President, Academic Dean, Professor Moore, Ms. Naomi Mackenzie, esteemed faculty, honored guests, proud families, and most importantly, brilliant graduates of the International Institute of Geneva. Good morning. It is an honor and privilege to stand before you today in this magnificent city, a cornerstone of diplomacy and internationalism. Now, as I address the class of 2023, I must say it fills me with immense pride and hope to see such a diverse and talented group of individuals poised to venture into the world. You were telling me, around 34 countries are probably represented here. Just gazing upon the youth in you, I feel a sense of hope brewing inside of me. You are about to take a step into a world that has never been as open, as fast-paced, and as complex as it is today. And that is fascinating, full of opportunities, and at the same time, extremely demanding. Because where there is complexity, there is always the temptation of simplicity, the temptation to think hard problems have easy solutions. But this is never true. As I like to say, in complex times, only complexity can save us. Class of 2023, I stand before you as the Secretary General of the UN Conference of Trade and Development, an organization committed to fostering economic development and bridging the many divides that mark our world in trade, in digital economy, in data, in international finance, in investment. In this era, our world is undergoing rapid and unprecedented changes, as I said before. Technological advances, we heard before, geopolitical shifts, and economic realignment are some of the forces that are reshaping the landscape we once knew. While change is intrinsic to human progress, change can be disconcerting. As I say, in times of rapid change, not everything changes at the same time and speed. In these bursts and lags, there is a great deal of asymmetries that run the danger to become structural and not temporal, making things worse, rising polarization, geoeconomic fragmentation, and what I call the social mediatization of internationalism, or simply Instagram diplomacy, mean that those who need to understand the world better are often lagging behind. Us internationalists must play catch-up. We find ourselves at a crossroad where the tenets of international cooperation that laid the foundation of post-World War II order are being tested out in the open. Some view post-Cold War style internationalism as an obsolete notion, a notion based on a naive understanding of economic interdependence as a guarantor of peace and democracy. A notion leading ultimately to fragile systems that crumble at the first impact of a global shock. In 2008, crisis, climate change, the COVID pandemic, and now the war in Ukraine, and the war in Sudan, as we heard, are used as examples of the failure of the system. Correctly so. But at the same time, as the failure of the principles, and that is the wrong premise. To replace the old system, some are calling for a strategic and ultimately conservative retreat from global engagement in the name of resilience. To de-risk the international order, we must make it smaller, more based on like-minded group of countries and economies with more conditionalities, for example, in aid and trade. But allow me to present a contrary perspective. Internationalism is not just a political doctrine. It is the recognition that our destinies are intertwined, that the challenges we face do not respect borders. The solutions to these challenges lie not in retreating within, but in embracing the essence of our shared humanity. I do believe that the system needs to be reformed. Its governance needs to be more inclusive and reflect today's world, no doubt. Just think that when the Bretton Woods institutions and the Security Council of the United Nations were created, many of the countries of today were not independent. Our present system is not empowered enough to deliver on the big global agendas, such as the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris targets, or to withstand systemic shocks. But to me, the source of this fragility is not that we are interdependent. The source of this fragility is that our interdependence is asymmetric. It is asymmetric in the governance of the international financial architecture. It is asymmetric in access to funding and technology. It is asymmetric within countries and among countries. It is asymmetric among genders and geographies. That, in my view, is, in fact, the real reason from the COVID pandemic, a lesson paid through immense suffering. As a rule, when a shock comes, the more unequal the system, the stronger and more painful the blow, and the slower and weaker the recovery. As a social scientist saw this happen again and again, almost everywhere one looked, with the certitude and accuracy of a universal law of physics. We saw it in the labor markets. We saw it in the digital infrastructure. We saw it in the classrooms. We saw it in the households. We saw it in the countries by level of income. Open gaps made us fragile. Closed gaps made us resilient. That is the iron law of inequality in the 21st century. And that is what our system is missing. Let me add one more point to this argument. In a deeper sense, strategic international retreat is flawed because it is ultimately impossible. Whether we stay or retreat from the system, we will remain interdependent in climate, in trade, and in a world of nuclear weapons, in peace and security too. Those who read history will recognize that that was the lesson of the 20th century interwar period, the lesson of the failure of the League of Nations, despite all the efforts that took place here in Geneva in those times. Since the industrial age, all industrial countries live in a global society, whether we like it or not. Retreating from the fact is impossible and ultimately counterproductive. Humanism, dear graduates, is the key to the change, the key to recognizing why we are all in this together, the key to closing the bridges of understanding that so often confuse and antagonize us. The motto of humanism was written many thousand years ago. All cultures and religions in the world have their own variation of this saying. I prefer the one from Terence, the North African former slave who became a famous playwright in ancient Rome. And he says, "I am human and nothing human is foreign to me." In closing, I ask you, class of 2023, to take that phrase with you wherever you go, to let it guide your curiosity, your sympathy, even your pain in the face of the atrocities and that humankind is unfortunately capable of too. I am human and nothing human is foreign to me. I ask of you to read, to interest yourself in the sacred texts and philosophies of culture, to read the local literature wherever you go, but also to value diversity in all its forms, not only diversity of background, but also diversity of thought. I am human, and nothing human is foreign to me. I ask of you to engage in dialogue. In an age of echo chambers, take the initiative to engage in dialogue with those who hold different opinions. Because dialogue, as we often forget, means to talk, but also to listen, and to listen with the intent of understanding. And there is a strength in that. I am human, and nothing human is foreign to me. I ask of you to remember that the best way to stand up for our values is not to retreat and stay with those who think like us. The best way to defend our values is to never cease from engaging. To disengage is to give up. In class of 2023, I ask of you finally, never give up. Never give up on humanism, on internationalism, on the very prospect of a shared destiny. Chancellor, faculty, parents, students, I want to leave you with an image which summarizes all I have been trying to say today. The image of Dame Julia Mira Hess. Mira Hess is famous for organizing lunchtime concerts during the Blitz to provide solace to a population suffering from the war. For 6.5 years, she played these concerts in London, Monday to Friday, without fail, risking her own personal safety in the process. So class of 2023, I now wish you all the luck and all the success in the world. Venture out into the world. Remain curious. Seek difference. May nothing ever be foreign to you. Thank you.